Our good friend Patrick Gillespie is Bloomberg's Buenos Aires bureau chief, and he joins me now from Buenos Aires in Argentina. Well, let's deal with Argentina first. Is the situation that, I know there's the poverty question, but the underlying hard-nosed economy, is that in a much better state?
It's great to be on, Richard. Argentina's economy is in a better state than it was a year ago. Milei inherited an economy that was heading towards a collision course with hyperinflation that would have been a full-blown crisis. So Milei has been able to move Argentina out of a worst-case scenario, but at the same while he's bringing down inflation, growing the economy, and attracting some degree of foreign investment, but he's far from out of the woods, Richard. We have a long way to go. As you mentioned, more than half of the country is living in poverty in Argentina, while you still have inflation over 100%. So there's a long way to go. But these two countries, Brazil and Argentina, they're going in polar opposite directions, Richard, on policy and economics.
So let's talk about Brazil. The situation there is getting worse. Is the economy actually bad?
That's the interesting part of this story this week, Richard, is that the underlying fundamentals in Brazil are quite good right now. The economy is supposed to grow around 3% this year. Unemployment is near a record low. So there's some very strong fundamentals in Brazil. What markets are rejecting this week is Lula's leftist state-first approach that's really ballooning the fiscal deficit. It's 10% of GDP. Whereas here in Argentina, you're seeing markets supporting the positive approach of Milei of austerity, bringing down the fiscal deficit to zero. So,
yeah, but you see, when I hear Milei's policies, I think Reaganomics, I think Thatcherism of the 1980s, and it works if you also deregulate and make the economy more competitive. Is there any evidence that Argentina's economy is going to become more competitive?
There are some early signs, Richard. It's incipient. It's a long way to go. But Milei passed a market-friendly reform in July of this year that is starting to attract the likes of Shell, Chevron, and other companies to invest in Argentina in the long term. These are incentives that get around Argentina's currency controls and other regulations that help to provide sort of a bulletproof system to Argentina, investing in Argentina in the long term.
And back in Brazil, the thing about Brazil that always amuses me with a small a is that everything just manages to trundle along. It's the same in Argentina to a certain extent. Life goes on. You've all lived in a sense of crisis for so long. I wonder if you're inured to the worst effects of it.
You have to remember, Richard, Brazil has not endured this type of currency sell-off in several years. I mean, just to give you an example of size and scope, the Brazilian central bank today sold $8 billion. They haven't done that to prop up the local currency. They haven't done that in 25 years. So yes, Brazilians who have lived through other crises in previous decades, they may be used to business as usual. But for a lot of younger Brazilians, this has never happened before. So Lula needs to show markets, if he wants to calm the currency crisis, that he's serious about austerity. He tried to introduce some austerity measures earlier this past week, but they were seen as too little, too late. So really there needs to be a shift about going into next year. Is Brazil serious about getting its budget in order?
Patrick, I'm grateful to you, sir. Thank you, Patrick Gillespie. Gorgeous blue skies of Argentina, Buenos Aires. Thank you, sir. Have a good Christmas.